Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ante Room, brought to you by Heart in Hand, the Modern Oddfellows Guide, at oddfellowsguide.com. If you want to learn more about the Independent Order of Oddfellows, please check out ioof.org. And always remember to be serious, for our lesson is as melancholy as it is truthful.
So we'll go to the first degree. So what are some of your memories or experiences that you recall from the first degree?
I remember who I knelt with. I remember my seed, like seed, from this day forth forever.
Yes, sir.
I remember the brother I was with. I remember who was Saul.
So about the story.
Most of my memories of that degree have been
I'm going to steer you to the story.
Yeah, most of my memories of that degree have been from doing it since, and I have done it several times as Saul now myself. Right. And so it's overwritten the original impressions, and I think because we were doing it off book and learning it from the page and thinking about it a bit more, it colors how I see it now over how I experienced it the first time.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Anyone else?
All I remember is Frank Anderson.
Oh, Frank Anderson. Yeah.
I did mine in Victoria #1, so that's why.
Yeah. So it's a brothers from different mothers, brotherhood over fatherhood, sisters over mothers versus mothers. So that's the story, right?
Really, for me, it was trust.
It was trust, yeah.
It was a lot of trust. I mean, at that time in my life, to put a blindfold on me wouldn't have happened. But I mean, and go through that rich. Through sports, I was used to like hazing and stuff like that. So, I mean, for me, there was a lot of trust going through that ritual.
Yeah.
So, story of friendship,
right?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Story of friendship, yeah. So, it's the ancient story. It's probably not quite as well known as the second degree story, but it's David and Jonathan are part of like the very first buddy movie. These aren't great examples because these people were criminals, but Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, they put trust and loyalty to each other in all their years together. The story of the movie, Thelma and Louise. There's parent-child angst in the story, and then of course that with faith, the small can defeat the mighty. These are all parts of the story that are picked out. The movies aren't picked out in the Oddfellows manual, but these are the ideas that are part of the story that are explained. So there are actually just three symbols, officially, three symbols. The 3 arrows and a bow, the quiver, and then the bundle of sticks. And all of these are in the hall. I think 2 or 3 of them are all over the Vice Grand station. Okay, so I'll just jump right into this one. So the bundle of sticks has, it's not exactly the same, but it's an interesting one, and it's explained in Ford's book that there's something where there's a symbol that is used by the military officers of a axe that is in the middle of a bundle of rods, and so the rods are strapped around the axe, and the axe is supposed to demonstrate authority, and the rods are representing the union of that authority. And this actually becomes a very common or popular symbol for the fascism movement, and the symbol itself from Roman times is called a fasces. But of course, ours is a unity that we're talking about around good. And from Ford, the meaning is that a few members are weak and many others are strong. Indeed, some are made more strong because of the need to protect the weak. So I'll ask you guys, because this, maybe not such a common thought about or meaning for people on the bundle of sticks, because we use it quite often. We say it in referring to our lodge, but what other meanings do you guys have? Open the floor for that one that might be in your head.
Well, I'm so glad you brought this one up because I Googled it and it's really weird. Don't Google it. Doesn't have any connection with us at all. It's really rude. So I'm glad that you actually explained what this means, because I've heard it so many times from all the women that say it. And I was always thinking, what does this mean? So that makes a lot of sense.
For me, it's if you have one single stick, it's going to break. You take a bundle and it's very hard to penetrate that bundle. And like Ford is saying, some are made stronger than others because you need reinforcement to protect the ones that are maybe weak in the middle. Who knows?
Right.
And we're stronger together than we are individually.
Yes. Stronger together, yeah.
But when we talk about strength, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. Just because someone is strong in one area doesn't mean they're strong in another where somebody else might be. But that carries on.
That's right.
Yeah, not necessarily physical strength.
No, I'm not talking physical. It's just we all have our personal strengths and we all have our personal weaknesses.
Right.
But together, it's like when I teach apprentices, I always put stronger people with less stronger people so that the less stronger people can become strong.
That's right there. Yeah.
Leadership.
Yeah.
So another one that comes up is the many hands make light work. That's another sort of common one about the group. And the one that I liked I didn't post it here. It's a little wordy, but it's that an old stick is brittle, and a young stick or a new green stick, younger branch, is more pliable and flexible. And when they're tied together, you can strengthen that old dried out stick. And then in the book, it relates it to people, and that a young person can support and help a rigid older person become more flexible. It's kind of a long blurb on it in the book, but that's the takeaway I got from it, was that it's not just strength, it's not just numbers, it can actually be characteristics can be shared. So that's the bundle of sticks. For the 3 arrows and the bow, this one is straight from, sorry, I'm putting you on mute for a moment. This one is straight from the story of friendship, but it also is a symbol of protection from danger and the watchfulness of our members. The symbol is certainly not, the 3 arrows symbol is certainly not a Oddfellows only. It is a symbol of warfare and protection, and it's on the U.S. coat of arms. In the eagle's talons are a bundle of arrows. But one of the things about arrows and symbols, and using the arrow as this particular example, is that you can stretch the meaning by telling the story a different way, and then you tell it a different way again, and it starts to stretch. And for an arrow to fly its best, it must be straight. And then the adjective straight then becomes true, and the arrow has to be true, and then the arrow should be pure. And this gets stretched for the purposes of the temperance movement, to stretch it all the way to sober. And the arrow is actually a symbol of the temperance movement, or the so everybody knows what temperance is: non vices, no drinking, no gambling, no drugs. So this is kind of how symbolism, as we talked about at the start, is a simple symbol, and then it can be adapted based on how it's being explained or used. So I'll give you a chance here, and if there's anybody has any other ones for the arrows and the bow.
I was curious about the relation between, and I understand this, the arrows and the bows, and maybe you're getting to this, but then you've got the thing of arrows.
The quiver. I'll get to the quiver.
Yeah, okay.
Is there importance to there being 3 arrows in particular? Does each arrow have a particular meaning?
I will have to get you an answer for that, but yes, there is an importance on the 3, but it's in Ford. It's in Ford's book. I didn't put it here. So one of the things about arrows in history is that, you know, there's the ancient tale of tying a message to the arrow and then shooting it. And the message in Oddfellows is the message of Oddfellows. And we still use it today. Like the arrow sending a message is right there on your Facebook Messenger. And you see this now. The arrow means you're sending a message. So as an added symbolic meaning, by shooting an arrow, you're sending the message of Oddfellowship. And I'll go to the quiver and the arrows now. All right, hold on for this one. Okay, so this is repetition of protection, and as they're clumped together in the story of friendship, right? And the quiver, I use both books referenced here. So the quiver is the receptacle whence are supplied the arrows used to secure peace and safety. And it teaches us that we must ever be ready to watch our brother's welfare and to render him due service. And then Ford does it a little differently, and he says the quiver as the storehouse of arrows that signify that we have a place for everything and an everything in its place. So in an emergency arise, we know not to waste time in idle search for things mislaid. So that's my dad's way of organizing his workshop. Everything in its place, and so he could walk in and know when I didn't put the pliers back. But what do you guys think they mean by what do you think they're talking about? They're not talking about arrows specifically, but what might they be talking about if you thought about today?
Maybe your morals and your priorities.
Yeah.
Not to have something amiss and have it out of place so that you can find it when it's needed.
Yep.
Does it have anything to do with being organized and somewhat tenacious with what you do and how you act?
I think I agree with that, Shad. When I did the class before, I had 2 interesting comments about it. One was maybe they're talking about our bank accounts, that our finances are in place. Our finances are ready for when emergencies arises. We know where they are. We know everything's organized. So in like Shad's point. The other one, which was interesting too, was that, and this kind of leans to a comment, I forgot who said it in the previous one, was that each of these arrows might be a skill that a member holds. And different members have we have an inventory of skills in our lodge. And that we know where they are, and we know how to reach them when in case of emergency. And I thought that was a really different way of looking at it, that it might not just be about protection and so forth. It might be being able to find somebody who can help us cook a meal for 100 people, so to speak. So thanks for that. That is it for the symbols that are officially in our group of initiation and first degree. But I've got some other ones here. We've still got a bit of time if you guys are sticking around, which is great. In the hall, there's the beehive, and there's actually a collection of beehives. They're in the hall because they are part of the Rebecca's emblems and symbols now. Originally, they were in the first degree, and they represented industry, system, unity, working for a common purpose. And the teaching of these was not confined to just the Rebecca degree or any single degree in Oddfellows. It is the idea that there is always work to do, and that we're always doing, no matter what level we're at, whether we're officers or whether we're members of the lodge in general. So I ask if you looked at that, because it's not part of any lessons, but would you have any other thoughts about what the Beehive means to you?
To keep busy and always study Oddfellowship when you can.
Mm-hmm.
Community.
Community, yeah. So to me, I always thought the lodge was the hive, and that we returned to the hive on our meeting nights. But you know, a bee, I don't know what's the term. Community, a bee community returns every night. And then the other one is that in the past, when it was secret societies, the members would probably have to swarm to protect the hive, clamp down, return if they felt that there was an attack, so to speak, attack on the lodge or on Oddfellowship. Another one that's in the hall, and this one is directly over the past grand, is the Cornucopia, and it was part of the 4th degree. The mythological, I gave the whole story here, kind of how it comes and why it's a horn, is that the story goes Jupiter is nursing from the goat, and he breaks one of the horns off the goat, and this horn gives the power to the possessor, whatever they desire. So the idea of the horn of plenty comes, and it's in our hall. So I'd really like to know kind of how it fit into the 4th degree. I'll find it at some point. But what do you guys think of when you see the Cornucopia? And especially if it meets anything to the Oddfellows?
Just abundance.
Abundance, yeah. Another one that came from the first class was to know that there's very different things within the Cornucopia, right? There's different vegetables and so forth. And I had a comment from the first class where they said, you know, we know we're made up of many different people, and that's great. Where we lack homogeny. And other ones that came up at the class were the reproductiveness of Earth, and that we mustn't forget Mother Earth. Not really an Oddfellow one, but it was something that people look at when they see the horn. And then, of course, it's a Thanksgiving symbol. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the last two things that are part of what would have been part of your initiation, the sign of recognition. So I know some of you know the sign of recognition, some of you might not, so you can teach your friends, your Oddfellow friends, the sign of recognition at the initiation is the sign of distress. And this is to be given when you are at a distance. You can't really speak to anyone. Maybe you're standing on the corner of Broad and I don't know what crosses Broad, but Government.
Johnson Street.
Sure. You're standing there wondering, you're in trouble. You've just been mugged or something's going on. You need someone who's an Oddfellow to help you. And so you would do this sign. That is class 1. So if you guys have any questions or any other comments, maybe even feedback for me.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you, Billy.
Well, you're welcome.
Great presentation.
Appreciate it.
Now I can see all of you. Hi, everyone.
There you go.
All righty. We'll see you all. Keep zooming. I hope everyone's doing well.
Hey, thanks a lot for
Thank
doing
you.
that, Bill.
You're
well,
welcome.
everybody.
Really appreciate you.
Thanks. Bye.
Appreciated.